The leather chair felt cold beneath me as I sat in Attorney Morrison's downtown office, my hands twisted together in my lap. 3 weeks had passed since I buried my sister Celeste, and I still couldn't believe she was gone. Just 42 years old, healthy and vibrant one day, then a brain aneurysm took her while she slept. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. Mrs. Patterson, thank you for coming, Attorney Morrison said, adjusting his glasses as he settled behind his massive oak desk. His office smelled of old books and furniture polish, and the afternoon sun streaming through the windows felt too bright for such a somber occasion. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. My husband Derek sat beside me, and I felt rather than saw his impatience. He'd been checking his phone every few minutes since we arrived, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. I understand this is difficult, Morrison continued, opening a thick folder. But we need to proceed with reading Celeste Monroe's last will and testament. As you're aware, Ms. Monroe was quite successful in her tech consulting business. Can we speed this up? Derek interrupted, his voice sharp. Some of us have work to get back to. I flinched at his tone, but Morrison simply gave him a measured look before continuing. This won't take long, Mr. Patterson. The attorney pulled out several documents, and I tried to focus as he began reading the legal language. Celeste had always been the smart one, the driven one. While I'd married young and became a wife, she'd built an empire. She never married, never had children, but she'd lived fully and on her own terms. To my only sister, Naomi Patterson, Morrison read, and my attention snapped into focus. I leave my entire estate, including all properties, investments, business interests, and liquid assets, totaling approximately $8 million. The words hung in the air like smoke. $8 million. My brain couldn't process the number. What? Derek shot forward in his chair. That's impossible. What about me? I'm family too. Morrison continued calmly, Mr. Derek Patterson is specifically excluded from any inheritance, as per Ms. Monroe's explicit instructions. He pulled out another sheet of paper. Ms. Monroe also left a letter for Mrs. Patterson. Would you like me to read it, or would you prefer privacy? Read it, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Morrison cleared his throat and began. My dearest Naomi, if you're hearing this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry to leave you. You've been the light of my life, my baby sister, and my greatest joy. I'm leaving everything to you because you deserve security, freedom, and choices. I'm leaving nothing to Derek because I see him clearly, even if you don't yet. Remember our last dinner together? When he called me a manipulator because I offered to pay for your dream trip to Paris. When he said I was controlling because I suggested you take that photography class. He showed me who he is, Naomi. He wants to control you, to keep you small and dependent. My money is for you alone. Protect it. Protect yourself. Live the life you were meant to live, not the one he's trapped you in. I love you forever. Your sister, Celeste. Silence filled the office. I couldn't breathe. That dinner had been 6 months ago, right before Celeste got sick. I'd pushed the memory away because it hurt too much. Derek had been horrible that night, accusing Celeste of trying to come between us, of thinking she was better than him just because she had money. I defended him then, made excuses, blamed the wine. This is garbage. Derek exploded, standing so violently his chair rolled backward. She was trying to break up our marriage. This proves she was manipulative. Mr. Patterson, please sit down, Morrison said firmly. The will is ironclad. Ms. Monroe was of sound mind when she drafted it with me personally 2 months before her death. She anticipated your reaction, which is why she took extensive legal precautions. Naomi, Derek turned to me, his face red with rage, you're going to share that money with me. I'm your husband. We're married. What's yours is mine. I stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. His face was twisted with greed and fury, and there was something in his eyes I'd never let myself acknowledge before. Something cold. Something cruel. Actually, Mr. Patterson, Morrison interjected, that's not accurate in this case. Mrs. Patterson's inheritance is separate property, not marital assets. You have no legal claim to any of it. Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Then his eyes narrowed as he looked at me. We'll talk about this at home, Naomi. Privately. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a threat. Morrison handed me a thick envelope. Mrs. Patterson, here are all the relevant documents. I strongly suggest you review them carefully with your own attorney. Ms. Monroe also established a trust that provides additional protections. You're the sole beneficiary and trustee. I took the envelope with shaking hands. $8 million. Celeste's entire life's work. And she'd left it all to me, cutting out my husband completely. Because she saw something I'd been too scared to see. The drive home was silent except for Derek's heavy breathing. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. I pressed against the passenger door, the envelope clutched to my chest, watching the familiar streets pass by in a blur. When we pulled into our driveway, Derek didn't turn off the engine right away. He sat there, staring straight ahead, and when he finally spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. Your sister was a bitter, lonely woman who died alone. She tried to poison you against me because she couldn't stand to see you happy. That money should be ours, Naomi. We're a team. We're married. You're going to do the right thing and share it with me. I got out of the car without responding and walked into our house on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Inside, everything looked the same as it had this morning. The beige walls, the conservative furniture Derek had chosen, the wedding photos on the mantel from 10 years ago. I'd been 23 then, fresh out of college, dazzled by Derek's attention and confidence. He was 28, had a good job, seemed stable and safe. When had safe become suffocating? Derek followed me inside, slamming the door. Don't ignore me, Naomi. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I heard myself say. Celeste left the money to me. It's my inheritance. She left it to you to cause problems in our marriage. Can't you see that? This is exactly what she wanted. To come between us. Or maybe, I turned to face him, she wanted to give me something that was mine alone. Something you couldn't control. His face darkened. Control? Is that what you think? I've given you a good life, Naomi. A home, security, stability. And this is how you repay me? By believing your dead sister's lies. They weren't lies. Everything she said about me was a lie. I never tried to control you. I never kept you small. I protected you from her manipulation. But as he yelled, I remembered things I'd buried. How Derek had convinced me to quit my marketing job because it was too stressful. How he managed all our finances and gave me an allowance. How he discouraged my friendships, saying people were using me. How every decision, from what car we drove to where we lived to what we ate for dinner, was ultimately his choice. I need time to think, I said quietly. Think? About what? About throwing away our marriage over money? About everything, Derek. I just lost my sister. I need space. Fine. He grabbed his keys from the bowl by the door. I'm going out. But when I get back, you better be ready to make this right. That money is going to save our future, Naomi. Don't be stupid about this. He left and the house fell silent around me. I stood in our living room, the envelope still in my hands, and let the tears finally come. But they weren't just tears of grief anymore. They were tears of awakening. Celeste had seen the truth about my marriage, about Derek, about the cage I'd been living in. And her final act of love was to give me the key to escape. I just didn't know if I was brave enough to use it. The next morning, I woke to find Derek's side of the bed cold and empty. He'd come home late, smelling of alcohol, and crashed in the guest room without a word. I lay there listening to the house settle around me, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Celeste had been gone for 3 weeks, but it felt like years. Every room in our house reminded me of her absence. She'd never really liked coming here. Now I understood why. She'd seen this place for what it was, a pretty prison. I got up and made coffee, going through the motions automatically. Derek appeared in the kitchen doorway around 8, his hair messy and his eyes bloodshot. We need to talk, he said, his voice strained but controlled. The explosion from yesterday had been replaced with calculated calm, which somehow felt more dangerous. I poured him coffee out of habit, then sat across from him at our small kitchen table. Through the window, I could see our neighbor Mrs. Chen watering her garden, her life moving forward normally while mine had tilted sideways. I'm sorry about yesterday, Derek began, and for a moment he almost sounded sincere. I was shocked. We both were. But I've been thinking all night, and we need to be smart about this money. Smart how? Your sister left you a fortune, Naomi. That's incredible. But it's also a huge responsibility. You've never managed money before. You don't know about investments or taxes or any of that stuff. You need me to help you. There it was. Not, we need to figure this out together, or, how can I support you? Instead, it was, you need me. Attorney Morrison said Celeste set up a trust with financial advisors. I said carefully. Derek's jaw tightened. You're going to trust strangers over your own husband? These people just want their fees, Naomi. They'll drain that money with their advice and charges. I'm your partner. I have your best interests at heart. I sipped my coffee and said nothing. In the silence, I heard what he wasn't saying. Give me control of this money. I've been thinking, Derek continued, setting down his cup. We should pay off the house first. Then maybe buy a bigger place. I could finally start that consulting business I've been talking about. We could travel, live the life we've always wanted. The life you've always wanted, I corrected quietly. His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Derek, when's the last time you asked me what I wanted? I ask you all the time. What do you want for dinner? What movie do you want to watch? Those aren't real choices, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. When did you last ask me what I wanted to do with my life? What dreams I had? What made me happy? This is your sister talking, Derek pushed back from the table. She's still manipulating you from beyond the grave. This is exactly what she wanted, to make you doubt us, doubt me. Maybe she wanted me to finally think for myself. The words hung between us like a challenge. Derek's face went through several expressions: shock, anger, calculation, before settling on wounded innocence. I can't believe you're saying this. After everything I've done for you. I've provided for you, protected you, built a life for us. And now you get some money and suddenly I'm the villain? I'm not saying you're a villain. I'm saying I need time to process all of this. Celeste just died, Derek. Can you please just give me space to grieve? Fine. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. Take your space. But that money is marital property whether your sister liked it or not. I have rights too, Naomi. Don't forget that. He left for work and I sat alone in the kitchen, my coffee growing cold. His parting words felt like a threat. I pulled out my phone and stared at it for a long moment before doing something I'd never done before. I called Attorney Morrison directly. Mrs. Patterson, he answered on the second ring. How are you holding up? Mr. Morrison, I need to understand something. My husband says the inheritance is marital property. Is that true? There was a pause. May I speak candidly, Mrs. Patterson? Please. Your sister was very concerned about protecting you. The inheritance is structured as separate property. It's not subject to community property laws. Additionally, she established an irrevocable trust with specific provisions. Even if you divorced, Mr. Patterson would have no claim to these assets. Celeste was very thorough. My hand trembled as I gripped the phone. She knew. She knew I might need protection from him. I cannot speak to your sister's motivations, Morrison said carefully, but I can tell you she spent considerable time ensuring these assets would be yours alone, with significant legal barriers against any claims from your spouse. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet kitchen and let that sink in. Celeste hadn't just left me money. She'd left me freedom. She'd built me an exit if I needed one. The question was, did I have the courage to use it? Over the next week, Derek's behavior shifted like weather patterns. Some days he was overly sweet, bringing me flowers and suggesting we spend the money on a second honeymoon. Other days he was cold and punishing, giving me the silent treatment or making cutting remarks about selfish women who put money over marriage. He wanted access to Celeste's accounts. He suggested I add his name to the trust. He brought home paperwork from a financial advisor friend who could help us maximize the inheritance. I refused everything, and with each refusal, I watched the mask slip further. One evening, I was going through Celeste's personal effects that Attorney Morrison had delivered: photo albums, journals, her laptop. Derek found me in the spare room surrounded by boxes. Still living in the past? He asked, his tone mocking. Your sister is gone, Naomi. She can't tell you what to do anymore. She never told me what to do, I said, carefully packing away a photo album. She supported whatever I wanted. Really? Then why did she hate me? Why did she try to keep us apart? Did she? Or did you resent that I had someone who loved me unconditionally? Derek's face flushed red. I love you unconditionally. I've stood by you for 10 years. Have you? Or have you just kept me exactly where you wanted me? He stormed out, and I returned to Celeste's things with shaking hands. In one box, I found her journal from the past year. I knew I shouldn't read it, but something made me open it to a random page. March 15th. Saw Naomi today. She's lost more weight. She said she's fine, but I can see her shrinking, disappearing into that house with that man. Derek controls everything: her money, her time, her choices. She doesn't see it yet. I don't know how to help her without pushing her away. If I say too much, he'll isolate her further. So I wait and watch and try to be there when she needs me. God, I hate watching this. Tears blurred my vision as I flipped through more pages, each entry a chronicle of Celeste's growing concern. She'd documented things I'd forgotten or minimized. Times Derek had belittled me in front of others. How he'd convinced me to stop taking art classes. The way he'd made me quit volunteering at the animal shelter because it took time away from him. In May, she'd written, I need to protect her. If something happens to me, she'll need resources to escape. I'm changing my will tomorrow. Derek will be furious, but I don't care. Naomi's freedom is worth more than his anger. I closed the journal and held it to my chest, sobbing. My sister had seen everything. She documented it all. And her final act had been to build me a lifeboat. That night, Derek came home after midnight. I heard him moving around downstairs, talking on his phone in hushed tones. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. I know. No, she's being difficult about it. Yes, of course I'll handle it. Listen, once I get access to those accounts, we can. Just give me a little more time. My blood ran cold. Who was he talking to? And why did he need to handle me? I slipped back into bed before he came upstairs, my mind racing. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. While Derek was in the shower, I picked up his phone. His password used to be my birthday, but when I tried it, the phone stayed locked. He changed it. Why would he change his password? Over breakfast, I watched him like a stranger. He scrolled through his phone constantly, angling it away from me. When it buzzed with texts, he'd glance at them and quickly silence the notifications. His behavior had changed in ways I'd been too trusting to notice before. I need to run some errands today, I said casually. I'm meeting with the financial advisors at the trust. Derek's head snapped up. I should go with you. No, that's okay. They specifically asked to meet with me alone first. Naomi, I'm your husband. I should be involved in all financial decisions. And I'll fill you in later, I said, standing up and grabbing my purse. But this is my inheritance, Derek. My responsibility. His face darkened, but I left before he could argue further. In my car, I sat for a moment, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Then I drove not to the trust offices, but to a place I'd found online the night before. A private investigator's office. I told myself I was being paranoid. That grief and stress were making me imagine things. But Celeste's journal entries echoed in my mind, along with Derek's whispered phone call and changed password. Something was wrong. I'd been ignoring the signs for years, but now I had the resources to find the truth. Mrs. Patterson? A woman in her 50s greeted me, her handshake firm and her eyes kind. I'm Investigator Patterson, no relation I assume. What can I help you with today? I took a deep breath and told her everything. About the inheritance, Derek's behavior, the strange phone calls, my gut feeling that something was very wrong. She listened without judgment, taking notes. How long do you think your husband might have been hiding something? She asked. I thought about it. Maybe a long time. Maybe since the beginning. I just didn't want to see it. She nodded. That's more common than you'd think. We can investigate his activities, finances, communications, whereabouts. It typically takes about 2 weeks for a preliminary report. But Mrs. Patterson, I have to ask, are you prepared for what we might find? No, I answered honestly. But I need to know the truth. My sister saw something I couldn't see. Before she died, she tried to protect me. I owe it to her memory to finally open my eyes. Investigator Chin handed me paperwork to sign. We'll be discreet and thorough. In the meantime, I suggest you don't change your behavior at home. Act normal. Don't let him know you're looking into anything. One more thing, I added as I stood to leave. Is there any way to find out who he's been calling and texting? We can definitely look into that. Phone records, location data if we need it. We'll build a complete picture. I drove home in a daze. I just hired someone to investigate my own husband. 2 weeks ago, if someone had told me I'd do this, I would have laughed. But 2 weeks ago, Celeste was still alive. 2 weeks ago, I was still blind. That evening, Derek was already home when I arrived. He was cooking dinner, something he rarely did, and the kitchen smelled of garlic and herbs. Hey babe, he greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that made my skin crawl. How was your day? How did the meeting with the financial people go? Fine, I lied smoothly, surprised by how easy it was. They explained how the trust works. It's all pretty straightforward. Good. And did you mention adding me to the account? As a co-trustee or something? It doesn't work that way, I said, setting down my purse. Celeste structured it specifically so only I can access it. His smile faltered. Well, maybe we can challenge that. Get our own lawyer. Why would we do that? It's working fine as is. Because we're married, Naomi? His voice had an edge now. What's yours is mine. That's how marriage works. I looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered who this man was. Had he always been this way? Or had he hidden it well, and grief had stripped away my ability to make excuses for him? Let's just eat, I said, avoiding the argument. We sat at the table in uncomfortable silence, pushing food around our plates. My phone buzzed with a text and I glanced at it. It was from Investigator Chin. Initial surveillance established. We'll have preliminary findings in 7 to 10 days. I deleted the text immediately and looked up to find Derek staring at me. Who was that? He asked. Just a spam call notification, I said, my heart hammering. He nodded slowly, but his eyes were suspicious. You've been different lately. My sister just died. It's more than that. You're pulling away from me. Or maybe, I said quietly, I'm just finally seeing clearly. The words were barely audible, but Derek heard them. His fork clattered against his plate. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'm tired. I think I'll go to bed early. I left him sitting there and went upstairs, my mind racing. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I looked the same as always, brown eyes, dark curly hair, pulled back, tired face. But inside, everything had changed. Celeste's voice echoed in my memory from a conversation we'd had years ago. Naomi, never lose yourself in someone else. Never make yourself small to fit into someone else's life. Promise me. I'd broken that promise. But maybe it wasn't too late to find myself again. Maybe it wasn't too late to be free. 10 days later, I sat in Investigator Chen's office again, my hands clenched in my lap as she placed a thick folder on the desk between us. Mrs. Patterson, before I show you this, I want to prepare you. What we found is significant. My mouth went dry. Just tell me. She opened the folder and pulled out the first photo. It showed Derek at a restaurant, sitting close to a woman I didn't recognize. She was young, maybe late 20s, with long hair and a bright smile. Derek's hand was on her knee under the table. Her name is Brianna Collins, Investigator Chin explained. She works in Derek's office as a marketing coordinator. According to our surveillance and the records we obtained, they've been involved for approximately 18 months. 18 months. A year and a half. While I'd been living my life, cooking his dinners, sleeping beside him, he'd been with her. There's more, Chin continued gently, pulling out more photos. Derek and Brianna entering a hotel. Kissing in a parking garage. Walking hand in hand in a park across town where we'd never go. We also obtained text message records, she said, sliding printouts across the desk. I won't make you read all of them, but the relevant parts show that Derek has been planning to leave you. He was waiting for the right time financially. I picked up one of the printouts. The words blurred and sharpened as I forced myself to read. Derek, just a little longer. Once Naomi's sister dies, we'll get the inheritance and I'll file for divorce. She'll be too broken to fight it and I'll get my half. Then we can start our life together properly. Brianna, what if the sister leaves her money to someone else? Derek, she won't. She's single, no kids. It'll go to her only family, which means Naomi. And what's Naomi's is mine. Community property, baby. Brianna, I'm tired of hiding. I want to be with you. Derek, soon. I promise. Just let me handle this right. The date on that exchange was 2 months before Celeste got sick. He'd been planning this. Waiting for my sister to die so he could take her money and leave me. There's something else, Investigator Chin said carefully. We found evidence that Derek took out a loan against your house 6 months ago. $20,000. Do you know what that was for? I shook my head numb. He used it to buy Brianna a car and pay for trips they took together while telling you he was at work conferences. He's been living a double life, Mrs. Patterson, and funding it with assets that should have been jointly controlled. She pulled out more paperwork, bank statements, credit card bills, receipts. Evidence of a life I knew nothing about. Hotel rooms, jewelry, expensive dinners. All of it paid for with our money he'd controlled while giving me an allowance like a child. How did I not know? I whispered. How could I be so blind? People like Derek are very good at manipulation, Chin said kindly. They isolate their victims, control the narrative, make you doubt your own perceptions. You're not the first person to sit in that chair and ask that question, and you won't be the last. I stared at the photos spread across the desk. In one, Derek and Brianna were laughing together, looking at each other the way I thought he used to look at me. Had he ever looked at me like that? Or had that been part of the act too? What do I do now? I asked. That's up to you. But if you're considering divorce, this evidence is substantial. No judge would look favorably on his behavior, especially given the financial deception. With your sister's inheritance protected, he'd have very little claim to any assets. I gathered all the papers and photos back into the folder, my hand steady now. Something cold and clear had settled over me, washing away the shock and pain. It was replaced by something sharper. Clear. Resolve. Thank you, I told Investigator Chin. Please prepare a complete report with everything you've found. I'm going to need it. When I got home, Derek was already there watching television in the living room. He looked up when I entered and I saw him with new eyes. Every line on his face, every gesture, every smile, it was all performance. All eyes. Where were you? He asked casually. Out, I replied, matching his casual tone. Running errands. You've been out a lot lately. I have things to take care of. Celeste's estate paperwork. It's complicated. He muted the TV and turned to face me fully. Naomi, we need to talk about this situation. It's been weeks and you still haven't shared any access to the money. This is ridiculous. We're supposed to be partners. I sat down across from him, the folder from Investigator Chin hidden in my purse. I studied his face. This man I'd lived with for 10 years, shared a bed with, built a life with. Had I ever really known him? You're right, I said and watched his face light up with triumph. We do need to talk. But not right now. I'm tired. When then? Soon, I promised, echoing his text to Brianna. Just let me handle things the right way. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he nodded. Okay, so, but Naomi? Don't take too long. I'm being patient, but there are limits. That was a threat. We both knew it. I went upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom, finally letting myself break down. Silent tears streamed down my face as I looked at myself in the mirror. How had I become this person? This woman who was so afraid of her own husband that she had to hide and plan and pretend? But then I thought of Celeste and what she'd sacrificed to protect me. She'd given me resources, information, power. She'd seen the truth when I couldn't, and she'd built me a weapon disguised as an inheritance. I wasn't going to waste her gift. I pulled out my phone and sent an email to Attorney Morrison, copying Investigator Chin. Please prepare divorce papers. I need this handled quickly and discreetly. I'll come to your office tomorrow to discuss terms. Then I blocked Derek from accessing our joint bank account and transferred my half to a new account in my name only. Tomorrow I'd start separating everything else. I'd protect what was mine and leave him with exactly what he deserved. Nothing. That night, I slept in the guest room for the first time, claiming I had a headache. Through the wall, I heard Derek talking on his phone, his voice low and urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. I knew he was talking to Brianna, making plans, counting money that would never be his. Let him plan. Let him dream. The reckoning was coming and he had no idea. I fell asleep with Celeste's journal on the nightstand beside me, open to her last entry. If you're reading this, little sister, it means I'm gone. I'm so sorry I can't be there to help you face what needs to be faced. But you're stronger than you know. You're braver than you believe. Take the power I've given you and use it. Break free. Live the life you were meant to live. I'll be watching over you always. Fight for yourself the way I couldn't fight for you. You deserve everything, Naomi. Everything. Don't settle for less. All my love, Celeste. I touched the words, feeling the indent of her pen on the paper. She'd known. Somehow she'd known I'd need these words exactly when I found them. I won't waste it, I whispered into the darkness. I promise, Celeste. I won't waste my second chance. The next morning, I woke early and dressed carefully in one of Celeste's old power suits that I'd kept. It fit perfectly, as if she'd meant for me to wear it someday. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked strong, determined, ready. Derek was still sleeping when I left the house. I drove to Attorney Morrison's office, the morning sun bright and clear. No more hiding in shadows. No more making myself small. Morrison was waiting with a divorce attorney named Helen Bradford, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. Mrs. Patterson, she greeted me, shaking my hand firmly. Attorney Morrison has briefed me on your situation. I've reviewed the evidence from Investigator Chin. You have an extremely strong case. We spent 3 hours going through everything. The affair, the financial deception, the loan against the house, the text messages planning to divorce me after stealing from my inheritance. Helen took notes, asked questions, and built a strategy. Here's what I recommend, she said finally. We serve him at his workplace, publicly, with his mistress present if possible. Men like Derek thrive on image and control. We shatter both at once. Will that make things harder legally? I asked. No. Given the evidence, it doesn't matter where we serve him. But psychologically, it sends a message. You're not going to be quiet or ashamed. You're taking control. I thought about all the years I'd stayed quiet, all the times I'd swallowed my feelings to keep the peace, all the ways I'd made myself invisible to make him comfortable. Do it, I said. Serve him at work. Helen smiled. You're going to be fine, Mrs. Patterson. Better than fine. You're going to be free. I signed the papers, authorized the service, and set everything in motion. Walking back to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of pretending, of making excuses, of living a lie, it was all falling away. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Where are you? We need to talk when you get home. I deleted it without responding. He could wait. He could wonder. For once, I was the one with power, with knowledge, with control. And I was going to use it. I spent the next week in careful preparation, moving through my days with a precision I didn't know I possessed. Derek noticed the change but couldn't identify it. I was pleasant but distant, agreeable but unengaged. I smiled and nodded and gave him nothing. You're being weird, he said one evening, watching me pack up some of Celeste's boxes. I'm grieving, I replied simply. He couldn't argue with that, though I could see it frustrated him. He wanted a fight, wanted me to crack so he could be the reasonable one, the victim of my emotional instability. But I refused to give him that satisfaction. Each day I crossed items off my carefully constructed list. I met with Helen Bradford to review the divorce papers. I consulted with the financial advisors from Celeste's Trust to understand exactly what I had and how to protect it. I gathered 10 years of joint financial records, photographing every statement, every receipt, every piece of paper that showed Derek's control of our money. The house had been purchased before our marriage in my name only, something I'd forgotten because Derek handled all the paperwork. The loan he'd taken against it was actually fraud, taken without my knowledge or signature. Helen was pursuing criminal charges for that alone. Most people don't push for criminal charges in divorce, she explained during one of our meetings. But given his premeditation and the financial abuse you've suffered, I think it's warranted. What do you want to do? I thought about Celeste's journal, about all the years she'd watched me shrink. About Derek planning to steal from my inheritance before leaving me. About Brianna's car, bought with money that should have gone to our bills. Push for everything, I said. He deserves to face every consequence. Helen's smile was fierce. That's what I like to hear. I also started putting my name back on everything. I added myself to all the utility accounts Derek had kept in his name only. I changed passwords on joint accounts. I gathered my important documents, birth certificate, passport, social security card, and put them in a safety deposit box Derek didn't know about. Most importantly, I moved money. Not all of it, that would alert him. But I slowly transferred funds from our joint checking into my new separate account. Enough to live on, to support myself, to prove I'd contributed financially even when he'd controlled everything. The hardest part was acting normal at home. Derek had become more attentive, clearly sensing something was wrong but unable to pinpoint what. He brought home flowers. Suggested we go out to dinner. Tried to initiate physical intimacy that made my skin crawl. I'm still not feeling well, I told him, avoiding his touch. The grief, it's affecting everything. Maybe you should see a therapist, he suggested, and I knew what he was thinking. A therapist would tell me I was depressed, give me medication, make me compliant again. Maybe, I agreed with no intention of following through. One afternoon while Derek was at work, I went through our house and sorted everything into mental categories. Mine, his, joint. The furniture was mostly his choosing. The decorations were compromises where I'd given in to his preferences. The house itself felt like a museum to his ego, with barely any trace of me in it. That needed to change. I hired a moving company and a storage unit. In 3 hours, while Derek was at his Tuesday late meeting, which I now knew was time with Brianna, a team of movers came and removed every single thing that was purely mine. Clothes, books, personal items, the few pieces of furniture I'd brought into the marriage. Even my grandmother's china that had been packed away in the attic. Everything went into storage except what I'd need for the next week. I left the house looking mostly the same but subtly emptier. Derek wouldn't notice immediately, but when he did, it would be too late. I also made copies of everything, his computer files, our photo albums, anything that might be useful or that I might want to keep. I documented the current state of the house with photographs, room by room. Evidence of my life here, proof of my contributions, memories of what I was leaving behind. Helen had recommended I stay in the house until after the service of papers, to maintain normalcy and prevent Derek from hiding assets or becoming violent. So I continued sleeping in the guest room, claiming my headaches persisted, and counted down the days. On day 5 of my planning, Derek came home early and found me in Celeste's boxes again. "You're still going through that stuff?" he asked, irritation clear in his voice. "There's a lot to sort through. She had a whole life. She's dead, Naomi. You need to move on. I looked up at him, this man who'd lied to me for years, who'd stolen from me, who'd planned to use my grief to rob me blind. Moving on is exactly what I'm doing. Something flickered in his eyes, suspicion maybe, or fear. What does that mean? It means I'm processing things. Figuring out what matters and what doesn't. And do I matter? He asked, and for a moment he almost sounded vulnerable. But I'd seen the texts. I knew about Brianna. I knew about his plans. So I smiled and said, "Of course you do," and watched him relax. The lie came easily now. Maybe I'd learned from the best. That night, I had dinner with my friend Renee for the first time in 2 years. Derek had gradually discouraged all my friendships, claiming they were too demanding of my time, or that my friends didn't really care about me. But Renee had never stopped reaching out, never stopped inviting me to things even when I always said no. "Naomi," she squealed when she saw me, pulling me into a tight hug. "Oh my God, I've missed you. I was so sorry to hear about Celeste. She was amazing." We sat at a small Italian restaurant and I realized how much I'd missed this, just being myself, talking freely, laughing without worrying about someone's reaction. "So how are you really?" Renee asked, her dark eyes studying me. "And don't say fine, because I can see you're not." I hesitated, then decided I was done hiding. "My marriage is ending." She didn't look surprised. "Thank God." "What?" "Naomi, Derek has been terrible for you. We all saw it. But every time anyone tried to say anything, you'd defend him and then drift further away. Celeste and I talked about it once, how worried we were." Tears stung my eyes. "Everyone saw it but me?" "You saw it," Renee said gently. "You just weren't ready to admit it yet." "What changed?" "Celeste's death changed everything. She left me money and Derek showed his true colors. And then I found out he's been cheating on me for 18 months. Renee reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." "Don't be. I'm not." "Well, I am, but I'm also relieved, free. I don't know how to describe it." "You don't have to describe it. You just have to feel it." "What are you going to do?" "I'm divorcing him. Publicly. Dramatically. In a few days." Renee's eyes widened and then she grinned. "That's my girl. Do you need anything? A place to stay? Help moving? Someone to slash his tires?" I laughed for the first time in weeks. "Maybe just a friend. I've missed having those." "You've got one," she promised. "And Naomi? Celeste would be so proud of you right now." On the drive home, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not hope that things would work out with Derek, but hope that I could build something new. Something better. Something mine. Derek was waiting when I got home, sitting in the dark living room like a villain in a bad movie. "Where were you?" he demanded. "Out with a friend. I texted you." "What friend?" "You don't have friends anymore." The words were meant to hurt, to remind me of my isolation. Instead, they confirmed everything I'd come to understand about him. "I'm rebuilding my life," I said calmly. "That includes friendships." "Rebuilding?" His voice rose. "What's wrong with the life we have?" "Everything, Derek. Everything is wrong with it." He stood up, and for a moment, I saw rage flash across his face before he controlled it. "You're different. Ever since that money, you've been different. This is exactly what your sister wanted, to destroy us." "No," I said quietly. "She wanted to save me. And she did." I went upstairs before he could respond, locking the bedroom door behind me. My phone buzzed with a text from Helen Bradford. "Papers will be served day after tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please be ready to leave the house immediately after. We don't know how he'll react." I stared at the message. 2 more days. 2 more days of pretending, of sleeping in this house, of existing in this limbo between my old life and my new one. I could do this. For Celeste. For myself. For the woman I was becoming. That night I had a dream about my sister. We were young again, maybe 12 and 7, running through our grandmother's backyard on a summer day. Celeste was ahead of me, laughing, her long braids flying behind her. "Come on, Naomi," she called. "Run faster. You're free now." I ran after her, feeling the sun on my face and the wind in my hair, and for the first time in years, I felt completely, absolutely free. When I woke up, my face was wet with tears, but I was smiling. 2 more days. The morning of the service, I woke up at 5 a.m., too nervous to sleep. In 2 hours, Derek would leave for work, unsuspecting. At 2 p.m., a process server would walk into his office and hand him divorce papers in front of his colleagues and Brianna. By 3 p.m., I'd be gone from this house forever. I'd spent the previous evening packing my remaining essentials, just 2 suitcases worth. Everything else was already in storage or would stay with the house that was legally mine. Helen had arranged for a locksmith to come at 2:30 p.m. to change all the locks. Derek would come home to find himself locked out of the house that had never actually been his. The poetry of it wasn't lost on me. I showered and dressed carefully, choosing jeans and a simple blouse, practical clothes for moving. Derek was already up, getting ready for work, oblivious to the fact that his entire world was about to implode. "You're up early," he commented, nodding his tie in the mirror. "Couldn't sleep," I replied truthfully. "Still having headaches?" "Something like that." He studied me for a moment and I wondered if he could sense it, the coming storm, the end of everything. But then he just shrugged and grabbed his briefcase. "I'll probably be late tonight," he said. "Got a big project at work." By big project, he meant Brianna. I knew his schedule now, thanks to Investigator Chen. Tuesday and Thursday nights were his regular meetups with her, usually at a hotel downtown or her apartment. "Okay," I said. "I'll probably be out too. More paperwork for Celeste's estate." He kissed my cheek, a perfunctory gesture we'd been going through for months, and left. I watched his car disappear down the street and felt nothing. No sadness, no regret, no second thoughts. Just relief. At 9 a.m., Renee arrived with coffee and bagels and her girlfriend Simone, who had a truck. "Moving day," Renee announced, hugging me. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified. Excited. Like I might throw up." "All normal," Simone said, practical as always. "Let's get you out of here." We loaded my 2 suitcases, plus a few last items I wanted to take. Photo albums, Celeste journals, some plants that were mine. The house looked the same with us gone, which was somehow the saddest part. I'd lived here for 8 years, and my presence had been so minimal that removing it barely left a mark. "Where are you staying?" Renee asked as we loaded the last box. "A hotel for now. Then I'm looking at apartments. Something small just for me." "You could get something huge with that inheritance," Simone pointed out. "I don't want huge. I want cozy. I want a space that's completely mine." At 1 p.m., we sat in Renee's car down the street from Derek's office building, eating sandwiches and watching the entrance. Helen had given me the process server's number, and at 1:55 p.m. my phone rang. "Mrs. Patterson? We're in position. Are you ready?" I took a deep breath. "Yes, do it." We watched as a professional-looking woman in a business suit entered the building. Through the glass doors we could see her talking to the receptionist. Then she was directed to the elevators. "This is it," I whispered. The minutes crawled by. At 2:07 p.m. my phone rang again. "It's done," the process server said. "He's been served." He was in a meeting with several colleagues, including Ms. Brianna Collins. I identified myself and handed him the papers as instructed. His reaction was significant. "Significant how?" he yelled. Tried to follow me out. Security got involved. It was quite a scene. "The papers have been delivered and witnessed. You're officially in process for divorce." I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking. Renee grabbed my hand. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it." "Oh God," I pressed my hand to my mouth. "He's going to be so angry." "So what?" Simone said firmly. "Let him be angry. He earned it. Now let's go meet the locksmith." We drove back to the house and I felt surreal, like I was watching myself in a movie. The locksmith was already there, waiting in his van. I let him in and watched as he systematically changed every lock in the house. Front door, back door, garage, side entrance. Every point of entry. "You'll need to change the garage code too," he advised. "And I'd recommend a security system with cameras." "Already ordered," Helen had been thorough. While he worked, I walked through the house one last time. The living room where Derek and I used to watch movies before he got too busy with work. The kitchen where I'd cooked thousands of meals he'd barely acknowledged. The bedroom we'd shared until I couldn't stand it anymore. None of it felt like home. Maybe it never had been. At 2:45 p.m., I locked the door behind me with my new key and left that house forever. Renee and Simone followed me to the hotel, helped me check in, and stayed until I felt settled. "Call if you need anything," Renee insisted. "Anything at all. Even if it's 3 a.m. and you just want to talk." "Thank you," I hugged her tight. "For everything. For not giving up on me. That's what real friends do," she said. After they left, I sat on the hotel bed and waited. My phone was off. Helen had advised me to avoid all contact with Derek until things settled. But at 5:30 p.m., the hotel room phone rang. I jumped, my heart pounding, before I remembered. Derek didn't know where I was. "Mrs. Patterson? This is Helen Bradford. Just checking in. How are you doing? I'm okay. Scared but okay. Good. I want you to know that Derek has already tried calling my office 6 times. He's also been to the house and discovered he can't get in. My paralegal informed him that all communication must go through us from this point forward. How did he take that? About as well as you'd expect. He threatened legal action, claimed we changed locks illegally, insisted this was all a misunderstanding. Standard rage and denial. What happens now? Now we wait. He has 30 days to respond to the divorce petition. In the meantime, you focus on yourself. Go out with friends. Start therapy if you want. Begin building your new life. Don't let him take up any more of your energy than he already has. After we hung up, I ordered room service and turned on the TV, but I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept replaying the day, the process server walking in Derek's face when he realized what was happening, the locks clicking into place on the house. At 7 p.m. my phone, which I'd finally turned back on, exploded with messages. All from Derek's number, which I'd expected. Derek, what the hell is this? Call me now. Derek, Naomi, this is insane. We can work this out. Derek, you changed the locks? That's my house too. Derek, your lawyer won't answer. Call me. Derek, stop being ridiculous. I know you're upset about Celeste, but this isn't the answer. Derek, fine. Play games. But I'm not giving up without a fight. Derek, you're throwing away 10 years over nothing. Derek, this is about the money, isn't it? You've become just like your sister. Greedy and manipulative. I read them all, then blocked his number. Helen was right. All communication would go through lawyers now. I didn't owe him explanations or arguments or one more second of my time. The next message was from an unknown number. Unknown, I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but Derek loves you. You're destroying a good man over lies. He told me everything about your sister poisoning you against him. I hope you're happy ruining lives. Brianna. Of course. She must have gotten my number from Derek's phone. I blocked her too. Then I called Investigator Chin. Can they keep contacting me? You can file for a restraining order if they harass you, she said. Keep screenshots of everything. If it escalates, we'll take action. I spent the evening documenting the messages, then treating myself to a long bath in the hotel's expensive tub. The water was hot and the bubbles smelled like lavender, and for the first time in weeks I let myself relax completely. I was free. Actually, genuinely free. Derek couldn't get to me. He couldn't control me. He couldn't manipulate or gaslight or diminish me anymore. And whatever anger or threats he threw my way would bounce off the legal wall Helen had built around me. The next few days passed in a blur. I looked at apartments and found a perfect one-bedroom with lots of natural light and a small balcony. I signed the lease using money from my own account, my own name, my own decision. I bought new furniture, things I actually liked instead of things Derek would approve of. Bright colors, soft textures, artwork that made me happy. I hung photos of Celeste and me, of my parents who died years ago, of friends I'd lost touch with. I made the space mine. Helen called regularly with updates. Derek had hired a lawyer who immediately tried to claim rights to Celeste's inheritance. That was shut down instantly with the trust documents. Then he tried to claim the house since we'd lived there together. Also denied. My name on the deed predated the marriage. He's grasping at straws, Helen explained. His lawyer knows he has no case, but Derek is insisting they fight. It's going to cost him a fortune in legal fees for nothing. Good, I said and meant it. 2 weeks after the service, I was unpacking books in my new apartment when Renee called. Turn on Channel 7 News, she said urgently. I fumbled for the remote and switched on the TV. The local news was showing footage of Derek being led from his office building by security. Allegations of fraud and embezzlement, the reporter was saying. Derek Patterson, a financial analyst at Morrison & Associates, was terminated today after an internal investigation revealed he'd been misappropriating client funds. Authorities are investigating whether criminal charges will be filed. I stared at the screen stunned. What is happening? I don't know, Renee said, but karma works fast. I called Helen immediately. Did you know about this? I just found out. Apparently, when you filed for divorce and exposed his personal loan fraud, his company launched an internal review. They found other discrepancies. He's been stealing from clients for at least a year. Oh my God. Naomi, he's in serious trouble. Criminal trouble. This might result in jail time. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt sad. Sad for the time I'd wasted. Sad for the person I thought Derek was. Sad for the life I'd built on lies. But underneath the sadness was something else. Something stronger. Relief. Freedom. Joy. I was out. I'd escaped. And while Derek's world crumbled around him, mine was just beginning. The news about Derek's embezzlement spread quickly through our old social circle. My phone lit up with messages from people I hadn't heard from in years, some genuinely concerned, others clearly fishing for gossip. I ignored most of them, responding only to those who'd been real friends before Derek had isolated me. But the most surprising call came from Derek's mother, Patricia. Naomi? Her voice was thick with tears when I answered. Please, I need to talk to you about Derek. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the disconnect button. But something in her tone made me stay on the line. I'm listening, I said carefully. I know what he did. The cheating, the lying, all of it. His father and I were devastated. I wanted to call and apologize. This wasn't what I'd expected. Patricia had never been warm to me, always making it clear I wasn't quite good enough for her son. Apologize for what? I asked. For not seeing it sooner. For enabling him. Derek has always been good at manipulating people, getting what he wants. I thought when he married you, when he settled down, he'd changed. But he hasn't. He's just gotten better at hiding who he really is. I sat down heavily on my new couch. You knew he was like this? Not the extent of it, no. But I knew he had problems with honesty, with empathy. When he was younger, there were incidents. We thought he'd outgrow it. She paused. I failed you, Naomi. I should have warned you. Should have protected you like your sister tried to do. What's happening with him now? I asked, surprised by how detached I felt. He's staying with us temporarily. Lost his job, can't afford his apartment lease. The criminal investigation is ongoing. His lawyer says he'll likely face charges. And Brianna? She laughed bitterly. She left him the day after he lost his job. Told him she couldn't be with someone who had no prospects. Despite everything, I felt a pang of something. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition of how completely his life had unraveled. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said and meant it. Don't be sorry for me. Be happy for yourself. You got out. That money your sister left you, it saved your life, Naomi. She loved you very much. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my apartment and let that sink in. Celeste had saved my life. Not just with money but with the truth. She'd forced me to see what I'd been too scared or too conditioned to see on my own. The divorce proceedings moved forward rapidly. Derek's legal troubles made him desperate to settle quickly, hoping that cooperation in the divorce might help his criminal case. His lawyer advised him to accept Helen's terms. No alimony, no claim to the house or Celeste's inheritance, split of joint assets only, which amounted to almost nothing since he'd spent everything on Brianna. He's actually going to sign? I asked Helen in disbelief when she called with the news. He doesn't have a choice. He can't afford to fight and he knows he'll lose anyway. We should have the final papers within 2 weeks. 2 weeks until I'd legally be free of Derek Patterson forever. I celebrated by taking myself to dinner at an expensive restaurant Celeste had always wanted to try together. I ordered whatever I wanted without checking prices, drank good wine, and toasted my sister's memory. Thank you, I whispered to her photograph on my phone. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't see. Thank you for giving me the courage to leave. Meanwhile, Derek's situation continued to deteriorate. The investigation revealed he'd stolen over $300,000 from his company's clients. Some of that money had gone to Brianna, the car, jewelry, their trips. Some had gone to gambling debts I'd known nothing about. He'd been living completely beyond his means, maintaining an illusion of success while everything crumbled behind the scenes. The local news covered his arrest when charges were officially filed. I didn't watch, but Renee told me about it over coffee. He looked terrible, she said. Lost weight, hadn't shaved. Nothing like the cocky guy who used to act like he was God's gift to the world. I don't want to hear about him, I said. He's not part of my life anymore. Fair enough. Tell me about your photography class instead. How's that going? I smiled. I'd enrolled in the photography course Celeste had suggested and Derek had forbidden. It turned out I had a decent eye for composition, and the instructor said I showed promise. I love it, I admitted. Being creative, learning something new. It makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. That's what healing looks like, Renee said, squeezing my hand. I also started volunteering at an animal shelter again, something else Derek had made me quit. Working with the dogs and cats, helping them find homes, gave me a sense of purpose I'd been missing. One afternoon, while walking a particularly energetic rescue dog named Biscuit, I ran into someone from Derek's office. Trent had always been nice to me at company parties, one of the few people who'd treated me like an actual person instead of just Derek's wife. "Naomi," he said, looking genuinely pleased to see me. "How are you?" "Good, actually. Really good. This is Biscuit. I'm volunteering at the shelter now." "That's great. And I'm glad you're doing well." I wanted to say, "What Derek did, what everyone found out about him. I'm sorry. You deserved better." "Thank you. I'm just glad I got out when I did." "We all are. He was terrible to you and a lot of us saw it but didn't say anything. That's on us." It was validating to hear even now. "What's happening at the company? With the clients he stole from?" "Total chaos. The firm is settling with everyone privately, trying to avoid lawsuits. Derek's become a cautionary tale in our industry. No one will hire him now even after he does his time." After he does his time. The reality of that hung in the air. Derek was likely going to prison. "How's Brianna?" I asked, surprising myself with my curiosity. Trent's face darkened. "She left the company. Too much drama." But before she left, she tried to throw Derek under the bus, claiming he'd manipulated her and she didn't know he was married. No one believed her. We'd all seen them together. "She knew," I said quietly. The text messages made that clear. "Yeah. Look, I should go, but it's really good to see you looking happy. You deserve all the good things, Naomi." As I walked Biscuit back to the shelter, I reflected on how different my life had become. 2 months ago, I'd been trapped in a marriage I didn't recognize as a prison. Now I was free, building a life entirely of my own choosing. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday afternoon in late spring. Helen called me with the news while I was in my photography class. "It's official," she said. "You're no longer married to Derek Patterson." I stepped outside to take the call, blinking in the bright sunshine. "That's it? It's done?" "It's done. Congratulations, Naomi. You're free." I hung up and just stood there, letting the reality wash over me. I was divorced, single, alone. And for the first time in my adult life, that didn't scare me. It felt like possibility. That evening, Renee and Simone took me out to celebrate. We went to a karaoke bar and I sang terribly and laughed until my sides hurt. I danced without worrying what anyone thought. I was just myself, completely and unapologetically. "Speech," Simone demanded at one point, raising her glass. "To Celeste," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Who saw me drowning and threw me a lifeboat. Who loved me enough to protect me even when I couldn't protect myself. And to new beginnings, to building a life that's real and mine and free." We toasted, and I felt Celeste's presence so strongly it brought tears to my eyes. She would have loved this moment. She would have been so proud. A week later, I got a letter from Derek. Helen had advised me not to read any correspondence from him, but curiosity got the better of me. The letter was handwritten, pages long, rambling, and desperate. He apologized for the affair, blamed stress and poor decisions. He insisted he'd loved me, that everything had just spiraled out of control. He asked me to visit him before his sentencing, to give him a chance to explain in person. I read it once, felt absolutely nothing, and threw it away. He'd had 10 years to treat me well. He'd had countless chances to be honest, to be faithful, to be a real partner. He'd chosen otherwise at every turn. His regret now, facing prison and ruin, meant nothing. I didn't respond. I didn't visit. I didn't give him one more second of my time or energy. Instead, I took the money I'd saved from carefully budgeting Celeste's inheritance and did something I'd always dreamed of. I booked a trip to Paris. The same trip Celeste had offered to pay for, the one Derek had forbidden, the one that had started his final argument with my sister. "I'm going for both of us," I told Celeste's photo before I left. "I'm going to see everything you wanted me to see. I'm going to live the life you wanted me to live." Paris was beautiful. I ate pastries and visited museums and took thousands of photographs. I walked along the Seine at sunset and felt completely, absolutely free. On my last night there, I sat at a cafe with a glass of wine and wrote in the journal I'd started keeping. "Dear Celeste," I wrote, "you'd love it here. But more than that, you'd love who I'm becoming. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for forcing me to see the truth. Thank you for loving me enough to protect me even when you knew it would cost you. I'm going to live fully, freely, joyfully, for both of us. I promise. Your sister, Naomi." When I got home, there was news. Derek had been sentenced to 4 years in prison for embezzlement and fraud. The judge had been harsh, citing his complete lack of remorse and the damage he'd done to his victims. I felt nothing when I heard. No sadness, no anger, no satisfaction. Just relief that this chapter of my life was truly, finally closed. Derek Patterson had taken 10 years of my life. He'd stolen my confidence, my independence, my sense of self. But he hadn't won. Because I'd gotten out. I'd escaped. I'd built something new and beautiful from the ashes of that terrible marriage. And that was the best revenge of all. 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I barely recognized my own life, in the best possible way. My apartment had become a true home, filled with plants and photographs and colors that made me smile. Every morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through windows I'd chosen, in a space that was entirely mine. The inheritance from Celeste sat mostly untouched in carefully managed accounts, growing under the guidance of the financial advisors she'd selected. I'd used only what I needed: the apartment, some new furniture, my photography equipment, and that trip to Paris. The rest waited for me to decide how to use it meaningfully. That decision came one afternoon while I was volunteering at the women's shelter where I'd started helping out. A young woman named Imani had just left her husband, taking her 2 children and almost nothing else. "I can't afford a lawyer," she told the shelter director, her voice shaking. "He controlled all our money. He'll get custody of my babies because I can't fight him in court." I watched her break down, saw her fear and desperation, and suddenly I knew exactly what Celeste would want me to do with her gift. The next week, I met with Helen Bradford and attorney Morrison to discuss creating a foundation. "I want to help women like me," I explained. "Women trapped in controlling marriages who don't have the resources to leave. Women who need legal help, financial support, a way out." Helen smiled. "That's a beautiful legacy for your sister." We spent months planning it. The Celeste Monroe Freedom Foundation would provide free legal services, temporary financial support, and counseling for women leaving abusive or controlling relationships. We'd help with immediate needs like housing and childcare, and long-term support like job training and education. I used $2 million from the inheritance to establish and endow the foundation. It was enough to make a real difference while leaving me comfortable for life. The foundation opened its doors in September, and within the first month, we'd helped 15 women. Imani was one of the first. With our legal team's help, she got primary custody of her children and a restraining order against her husband. Last I heard, she'd enrolled in nursing school. "You're changing lives," Renee said one evening as we sorted donation boxes at the foundation office. "Celeste is changing lives," I corrected. "I'm just making sure her money does what she would have wanted." Working at the foundation gave me purpose I'd never found in my marriage. Each woman who came through our doors reminded me of myself. Scared but brave, broken but fighting to be whole again. Helping them heal helped me heal too. I also threw myself into photography with unexpected passion. What had started as a hobby became something more. I had a small show at a local gallery featuring portraits of the women from the foundation, with their permission, faces obscured to protect privacy. The exhibition was called Breaking Free, and every piece sold, with proceeds going back to the foundation. A local newspaper did a feature on me. Local philanthropist builds foundation after personal experience with controlling marriage. I was nervous about being so public with my story, but Helen assured me it was safe. "Derek's in prison," she reminded me. "He can't touch you anymore." The article brought in donations and volunteers. It also brought unexpected connections. Women reached out sharing their own stories, thanking me for speaking up. Some became friends. Some became volunteers. One became my assistant director at the foundation. Her name was Zara, and she'd left her own controlling marriage 3 years earlier. She was brilliant, compassionate, and understood exactly what our clients were going through. "This foundation would have changed my life," she told me during her interview. "Let me help you change others." As the foundation grew, so did I. I started therapy to work through the years of manipulation and control I'd endured. My therapist helped me understand how Derek had systematically isolated me, diminished me, made me dependent. "You're not responsible for his actions," Dr. Williams told me. "The man you thought you married probably never existed. He showed you what he thought you wanted to see." Understanding that was both painful and freeing. I hadn't failed at marriage. I'd been in an impossible situation with someone who'd never intended to be a real partner. I also reconnected with old friends Derek had driven away. Some friendships had faded too far to revive, but others picked up like no time had passed. I built a community around myself. People who supported me, challenged me, celebrated me. 1 year after my divorce, the foundation hosted an anniversary gala. We'd helped over 100 women in that first year. The ballroom was full of donors, volunteers, and clients whose lives had been transformed. I stood at the podium in a dress Celeste would have loved, bold and blue and completely me, and looked out at the crowd. "A year ago," I began, I was newly divorced, newly free, and trying to figure out who I was without the man who'd defined me for a decade. My sister, Celeste Monroe, had left me a gift, not just money but possibility. The possibility of a different life. A better life. A life where I got to choose. I paused, emotion catching in my throat. Celeste saw my marriage for what it was when I couldn't see it myself. She protected me when I couldn't protect myself. And when she died, she made sure I'd have the resources to escape and rebuild. This foundation is my way of passing that gift forward. Every woman we help, every life we change, every chain we break, that's Celeste's legacy. That's what love looks like. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped down from the podium, I caught sight of Patricia, Derek's mother, sitting in the back row. She'd been one of our largest donors, contributing $50,000 in her own quiet rebellion against her son's actions. She smiled at me and I smiled back. Some relationships could be salvaged, rebuilt on new, honest foundations. Later that evening, as the gala wound down, I stepped outside for air. The city stretched out before me, lights twinkling like stars, full of possibility and promise. I did it, Celeste, I whispered. I took your gift and made something beautiful. I hope you're proud. A breeze stirred my hair, warm and gentle, and I chose to believe it was her answer. Meanwhile, in prison, Derek's world had continued to shrink. I heard occasional updates through Patricia, though I'd asked her not to share them unless necessary. He'd been denied early parole. Brianna hadn't visited or written to him even once. His former colleagues had testified against him at his trial. He had nothing and no one. I should have felt triumph, but I just felt sad for the time I'd wasted with him. Sad for the person I'd thought he was. But mostly I felt grateful. Grateful I'd gotten out, grateful for Celeste's foresight, grateful for the life I was building from the rubble. One afternoon, while reviewing foundation applications, Zara brought me coffee and sat down across from my desk. You know what I admire most about you? She asked. What's that? You're not bitter. After everything he did, you're not consumed by anger or revenge. You just built something beautiful and moved on. I was angry, I admitted. For a while I was furious. But staying angry would have given him more of my life, and he'd already taken too much. The best revenge isn't destroying him. It's living well without him. Being happy, being free, being myself. That's what really defeats people like Derek. Our joy, our healing, our refusal to stay broken. Zara smiled. That's exactly why this foundation works. Because you're proof that there's life after leaving. That it gets better. She was right. It did get better. Every day got a little better, a little brighter, a little more mine. I'd started dating casually, nothing serious, just enjoying getting to know people without the weight of commitment or expectation. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to recognize red flags, to walk away at the first sign of controlling behavior. Most importantly, I'd learned to be alone and happy. To enjoy my own company, to pursue my own interests, to make myself whole without needing someone else to complete me. That was Celeste's greatest gift, not the money but the lesson. I was enough all by myself. Everything else was just extra. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The foundation flourished. My photography took off when a national women's magazine featured my Breaking Free series. I traveled, made friends, pursued hobbies. I was genuinely, completely happy. Then, 18 months after my divorce, I got an unexpected call from Patricia. Naomi, I need to tell you something about Derek, she said, her voice strained. My stomach dropped. Is he getting out early? No, nothing like that. But he's sick. Cancer. Stage 4. He is maybe 6 months. I sat down heavily, my mind reeling. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm not asking you to say anything. I just thought you should know. He's been asking to speak with you. No, the word came out instantly, firmly. I'm sorry he's sick, Patricia, but I can't. I won't. I understand. I wouldn't either if I were you. But I had to ask. He's still my son. After we hung up, I sat in my office staring at the wall. Derek was dying. The man who'd controlled and manipulated me, who'd stolen years of my life, who'd betrayed me in every possible way, he was dying. I felt complicated. Sad, maybe, for the waste of a life. For the person he could have been if he'd chosen differently. But I didn't feel obligated to see him, to grant him forgiveness he'd never earned. You look like you've seen a ghost, Zara said, poking her head into my office. I told her about the call. Am I a terrible person for not wanting to see him? Are you kidding? You're a person with boundaries. Healthy boundaries. He hurt you, Naomi. You don't owe him anything, not even a deathbed visit. But what if? No, Zara cut me off. Stop. He had years to be a better person. Being sick doesn't erase what he did. You get to protect yourself even now. Especially now. She was right. I knew she was right. But guilt gnawed at me anyway. The old programming Derek had instilled, the idea that I was supposed to be understanding, forgiving, selfless. I called Dr. Williams for an emergency session. Your guilt is a conditioned response, she explained. Derek trained you to prioritize his needs over yours, to feel responsible for his feelings. But you're not responsible for him anymore. You haven't been for 18 months. Don't let his illness pull you back into that dynamic. So it's okay not to see him? It's more than okay. It's self-care. It's protecting the progress you've made. Naomi, you've built a beautiful life without him. Don't let him back in even for closure he thinks he needs. You got your closure when you walked away. The calls from Patricia continued over the next weeks. Derek's requests became more desperate, more manipulative. He claimed he needed to apologize, that he wanted to make amends, that he couldn't die without seeing me one last time. Each time I said no. He's getting angry, Patricia admitted during one call, saying you're heartless, that you don't understand Christian forgiveness. I forgave him already, I said calmly. For myself, not for him. But forgiveness doesn't mean letting him back into my life. Not even at the end. I think you're right, she said quietly. I just wish he could see that. He's still blaming everyone else, refusing to take responsibility. Even dying, he hasn't changed. That confirmed everything I needed to know. Derek wasn't seeking reconciliation for my benefit. He wanted absolution, wanted to feel better about himself before he died. He wanted me to tell him he was forgiven, that he wasn't the villain of this story. But I wouldn't give him that comfort. Some actions don't deserve forgiveness. Some people don't earn redemption. And I had no obligation to make his ending easier when he'd made my life so hard. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened at the foundation. A major news network wanted to do a segment on our work. A full documentary feature about women escaping controlling marriages, with my story as the centerpiece. This could bring in massive donations, Zara said excitedly. Reach women who don't even know they need help yet. But it means going completely public. I hesitated. Everyone will know my story. Everyone important already knows it. And think about the women you could help. The lives you could change. I agreed, and the production team spent 2 weeks filming at the foundation, interviewing clients, documenting our work. They wanted to interview Derek's mother and some of his old colleagues. They even wanted to try interviewing Derek himself. Absolutely not, I told the producer. He doesn't get a platform. This isn't about him. It's about survivors. The documentary aired 2 months later during primetime. Breaking Free. One woman's journey from control to empowerment showed my transformation, the foundation's work, and powerful testimonials from the women we'd helped. The response was overwhelming. Our website crashed from traffic. Donations poured in. Women from all over the country reached out asking for help or wanting to start similar foundations in their areas. We went national within 6 months, opening satellite offices in 5 major cities. I hired staff, trained volunteers, built a network of lawyers and therapists and financial advisors all dedicated to helping women escape. Celeste's $8 million had multiplied through careful investment and generous donations. The foundation now had resources to help thousands of women. My sister's legacy was changing the world. Then one morning I got a call from Attorney Morrison. Naomi, I need to inform you that Derek Patterson passed away last night. His mother wanted you to know. I sat down slowly. Oh. She asked if you'd like to attend the funeral. I'm obligated to relay the message, but you're under no obligation to attend. I won't be there, I said after a moment. But please send Patricia my condolences. She's been kind to me. After I hung up, I sat in silence, processing. Derek was dead. The man who'd dominated 10 years of my life, who'd shaped so much of who I'd become, both during the marriage and after, was gone. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relief or satisfaction. I just felt neutral, like hearing about a stranger's death. He'd become that irrelevant to my life. That evening, I went to the cemetery where Celeste was buried. I brought fresh flowers and sat beside her grave, watching the sun set. Derek died, I told her. I thought I should tell you. But honestly, Celeste, it doesn't matter. He stopped mattering a long time ago. What matters is what you did for me. The life you gave me back. The foundation we built together. The women we're helping. That's your real legacy, not him. The headstone gleamed in the fading light. Celeste Monroe. Sister, friend, savior. She saw what others could not. You really did see, I whispered. You saw everything. Thank you for giving me the courage to see it too. I didn't attend Derek's funeral. I heard later that it was small, just family and a few acquaintances. Brianna didn't come. His colleagues didn't come. He died the way he'd lived in the end, alone, having pushed away anyone who genuinely cared. Patricia sent me a note afterward. Thank you for not coming. It would have been inappropriate, and I think we both know Derek didn't deserve your presence even at the end. You've done something beautiful with your life, Naomi. Celeste would be so proud. So am I. With Derek's death, a chapter truly closed. Not because he was gone, but because I realized how little he'd mattered in the end. The life I'd built without him was so much bigger, brighter, and more meaningful than anything we'd had together. I wasn't Derek's victim anymore. I wasn't even his survivor. I was just Naomi, philanthropist, photographer, friend, woman who'd been given a second chance and made something beautiful with it. And that was enough. 2 years after my divorce, the foundation had become something beyond anything I'd imagined. We'd helped over 500 women escape controlling or abusive relationships. Our success rate was remarkable. Over 90% of our clients established independent lives and never returned to their abusers. I'd also finished a photography book, Faces of Freedom, featuring portraits and stories of the women we'd helped. The book became a bestseller, with all proceeds going back to the foundation. Major media outlets interviewed me. I spoke at conferences. I'd become an unexpected voice in the movement to help women escape financial and emotional abuse. You're kind of famous now, Renee teased one afternoon as we had coffee. How does that feel? Weird, I admitted. But if it helps more women find us, then it's worth it. The foundation had grown beyond anything Celeste and I could have built alone. We now had a staff of 30, partnerships with law firms across the country, and a network of safe houses and emergency resources. We'd even started a job training program to help women gain financial independence. My own life had transformed too. I'd bought a house, not huge but perfect for me, with a studio for my photography and a garden I tended on weekends. I traveled to places Derek would never have let me go. I discovered I loved hiking, painting, trying new foods, meeting new people. I'd also started dating someone I'd met at a charity event. Nathan, a social worker who understood my mission and respected my boundaries. It wasn't serious yet, but it was healthy and genuine, built on honesty instead of control. You seem happy, Patricia commented during one of our occasional lunches. She'd become an unexpected friend, a connection to the past that didn't hurt anymore. I am, I said simply. Finally, genuinely happy. Derek would hate that, you know. Your happiness. Your success. The fact that you're thriving without him. I know. But that's the best justice, isn't it? Not his suffering or death, but my joy. My freedom. The fact that I took the worst thing he did to me and turned it into something that helps others. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. Celeste would be proud. She always saw your potential, even when you couldn't see it yourself. I still visited Celeste's grave regularly, updating her on the foundation's progress. Sometimes I brought students from our job training program, women who were rebuilding their lives just like I had. This is possible because of women like Celeste, I'd tell them. Women who see injustice and do something about it. You can be that woman too. You can take your pain and turn it into purpose. The legal world had taken notice too. The foundation's work contributed to new legislation protecting victims of financial abuse. Courts started recognizing economic control as a form of domestic abuse. Judges underwent training to identify manipulation tactics. Slowly, the system began changing. I testified before state legislature about my experience and the patterns we documented through our work. Financial abuse is insidious, I told them. It looks like a husband managing finances, like a partner making decisions for your own good, like someone protecting you from stress. But it's really about control, about keeping someone dependent and trapped. We need laws that recognize this, that protect victims, that hold abusers accountable. The bill passed, creating new legal protections and resources for victims of economic abuse. It was named the Celeste Monroe Financial Freedom Act. When I heard the news, I cried for the first time in months. My sister's name would be attached to legislation helping women forever. Her legacy was literally being written into law. You did it, I whispered at her grave that evening. You changed the world, Celeste. Even after you're gone, you're still saving people. But the most satisfying justice came from unexpected places. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Brianna's life had imploded after Derek. She'd lost her job, couldn't find another one in the industry after her role in the scandal became known. She'd moved back in with her parents, single and struggling. I felt no satisfaction in her suffering, only sadness that she'd made such destructive choices. She destroyed her own life chasing something that was never real. A year after Derek's death, she reached out through the foundation's website, not realizing I'd see her message. "I was in a controlling relationship," she wrote. "I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I see how he manipulated me. How he lied and used me. I'm struggling to rebuild my life and need help." Zara brought me the message. "What do you want to do with this?" I stared at Brianna's name on the screen. The woman who'd slept with my husband, who'd knowingly participated in his betrayal, who'd sent me hateful messages when I left. She was asking my organization for help. "Assign her to another city's office," I said finally. "Make sure she gets the help she needs. But I won't be involved directly." "You're a better person than me," Zara said. "I'm just someone who knows what it's like to be manipulated by Derek." Even if she chose to participate in the affair, he was still lying to her too. If she genuinely wants to change her life, we should help. That didn't mean I forgave her. It didn't mean I wanted anything to do with her. But my foundation existed to help women escape controlling situations. Her relationship with Derek, however it started, had clearly been toxic for her too. The justice I needed wasn't revenge against Brianna or satisfaction in Derek's demise. It was knowing I'd survived. That I'd built something meaningful. That I'd taken the worst experience of my life and turned it into hope for others. One evening, as I was closing up the foundation office, a young woman approached me in the parking lot. "Naomi Patterson?" she asked shyly. I nodded, immediately alert but trying not to show it. "I just wanted to thank you. 2 years ago, I read about your story in the paper. I was trapped in a marriage just like yours. Reading about how you got out, how you built this foundation, it gave me courage. I left. I took my daughter and I left. We're doing okay now. Better than okay. And it's because you showed me it was possible." Tears filled my eyes. "I'm so glad you're safe." "I am. We both are. And I wanted you to know, your sister saved you, but you're saving others. That matters. Thank you." She walked away and I stood in the parking lot, watching her go, overwhelmed by the reality of what Celeste and I had built. We weren't just helping women escape, we were showing them that life after leaving could be beautiful. That was the truest justice. Not punishment for Derek, not revenge against Brianna, but the ripple effect of one woman's love and another woman's courage. Celeste had saved me. I was saving others. And those others would go on to inspire and help even more women. The legacy would continue long after I was gone, multiplying and spreading like light chasing away darkness. Later that night, I updated my journal, the one I'd started in Paris, now filled with entries documenting my transformation. "Justice isn't always dramatic," I wrote. "It's not always about punishment or revenge. Sometimes justice is quieter. It's building a life so beautiful that the person who tried to destroy you becomes irrelevant. It's taking pain and transforming it into purpose. It's living well, loving freely and helping others do the same." Derek is dead and mostly forgotten. But Celeste's love lives on through this foundation, through the women we help, through the legislation bearing her name. That's justice. That's victory. And that's enough. 3 years after my divorce, I stood in the new headquarters of the Celeste Monroe Freedom Foundation, a beautiful 3-story building in downtown that we'd purchased with a combination of donations and my own contribution. The grand opening was today and I was nervous in a way I hadn't been in years. Not nervous about the foundation's success, that was proven. We now operated in 15 cities, had helped over 2,000 women, and were expanding internationally. Not nervous about public speaking. I'd done enough interviews and presentations to feel comfortable in front of crowds. I was nervous because this felt like a completion of something. A full circle moment. The final transformation from who I'd been in that terrible marriage to who I'd become in freedom. The event space was packed with donors, volunteers, clients, and supporters. I saw Renee and Simone near the front, Patricia sitting with some of Celeste's old colleagues, Zara coordinating the media presence. And scattered throughout the crowd were women whose lives had been changed by our work. Women who'd found their way to freedom just like I had. "You ready?" Nathan asked, squeezing my hand gently. We'd been together for a year now, taking things slowly, building something real and healthy. "As ready as I'll ever be." I stepped up to the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. The banner behind me read, Celeste Monroe Freedom Foundation, Building Futures, Breaking Chains. "Thank you all for being here today," I began, my voice steady and clear. 3 years ago I was trapped. Not physically, I could leave my house whenever I wanted, but trapped nonetheless. Trapped by financial control, emotional manipulation, and years of conditioning that told me I was nothing without my husband. Trapped in a marriage that was killing me slowly, so gradually I didn't even notice I was disappearing. I paused, seeing women in the audience nodding in recognition. My sister, Celeste Monroe, saw what I couldn't see. She recognized the prison I was living in even when I called it a home. And when she died unexpectedly, she left me the most precious gift. Not money, though that's what my husband wanted, but freedom. The resources and the motivation to finally see the truth and escape. I gestured to the building around us. This foundation exists because one woman loved her sister enough to protect her, even from beyond the grave. It exists because I took that gift and asked myself, how many other women are trapped like I was? How many women are being controlled, diminished, isolated, and don't even recognize it? How many women need someone to see them, to believe them, to help them escape? The answer is millions. Millions of women trapped in relationships that look fine from the outside but are slowly destroying them from the inside. This foundation is for those women. This building is for those women. Every lawyer, counselor, financial advisor, and volunteer we have is for those women. I looked directly at the group of foundation clients sitting together in the third row, women at various stages of their journeys to freedom. To every woman who's ever felt small, who's been told she's overreacting, who's had her finances controlled or her friendships discouraged or her dreams dismissed, you're not crazy. You're not imagining it. You're not the problem. And there is a way out. There is life after leaving. There is joy and peace and freedom waiting for you. The applause started, building into something overwhelming. I waited for it to quiet before continuing. People ask me sometimes if I hate my ex-husband. If I'm angry that I wasted 10 years of my life with him. The truth is I'm not. I'm sad for who I was during that time, sad that I couldn't see clearly sooner. But I'm not angry anymore. Because anger would give him power he doesn't deserve. Anger would mean he still affected my life. Instead, I choose gratitude. Gratitude for Celeste's wisdom and love. Gratitude for the hard lessons that taught me what I will and won't accept in relationships. Gratitude for every woman who's walked through our doors seeking help, because each one reminds me why this work matters. And gratitude for all of you, the donors, volunteers, and supporters who believe in our mission. I smiled, feeling lighter than air. My ex-husband thought Celeste's inheritance would fund his exit from our marriage. He thought her money would give him the life he wanted. Instead, it gave me the life I deserved. It built this foundation that's helped thousands of women. It created a legacy of freedom that will outlast all of us. That's the best revenge, not his suffering but our success. Not his punishment but our joy. Not his awareness of what he lost, but our complete indifference to his existence. We don't need revenge when we're too busy building something beautiful. The applause was deafening. Women were crying, standing, embracing each other. I saw Patricia wiping her eyes, Renee beaming with pride, Zara nodding in approval. After the formal program, people mingled. I moved through the crowd, hugging women I'd helped, thanking donors, accepting congratulations. Each conversation reminded me how far I'd come, not just from Derek but from the scared, small person I'd been in that marriage. A woman I didn't recognize approached me, probably mid-50s, with kind eyes. Naomi Patterson? I'm Dr. Judith Chen. I'm a researcher studying economic abuse and intimate partner control. Your foundation's work has been invaluable to our understanding of these patterns. Thank you. We're happy to contribute to research. Actually, I wanted to ask if you'd consider co-authoring a book with me. Academic but accessible. Combining research data with personal stories and foundation case studies. Something that could help professionals identify and address these situations more effectively. I considered it. Another project, another way to extend our reach and help more women. I'd be honored, I said. As the evening wound down and guests began leaving, I found myself alone in what would be my new office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, sunlight still streaming through even as evening approached. My photography hung on the walls, images from Breaking Free, showing women at the moment they realized they could leave, they could survive, they could thrive. Nathan appeared in the doorway. Quite a day. Quite a day, I agreed. You know what strikes me most about your story? He said, coming to stand beside me at the window. What's that? You're not a survivor. I mean, you are, but that's not who you are. You're not defined by what Derek did to you. You're defined by what you built after. The women you've helped, the laws you've changed, the awareness you've raised. He's a footnote in your story, not the plot. I thought about that. He was right. When I told my story now, Derek was barely part of it. The story was about Celeste, about the foundation, about transformation and purpose and freedom. Derek was just the obstacle I'd overcome, not the defining feature of my life. I like that, I said. I like being defined by what I built, not what was done to me. That's what healing looks like, Nathan said softly. That evening, I drove to the cemetery one last time before heading home to my house, my space, my life. I brought Celeste's favorite flowers and sat beside her grave as the sun set. We did it, I told her. The foundation is real, permanent, growing. Your name will help women forever. Your love changed everything. The headstone gleamed in the fading light, and I traced her name with my finger. I know you can't answer, but I like to think you're proud of me. Proud of who I became after you saved me. I'm not the scared woman in that marriage anymore. I'm not even just a survivor. I'm someone who builds things, who helps people, who lives fully and freely and joyfully. That's your gift to me, Celeste. Not just the money, the courage to become who I was always meant to be. I stayed until the sun fully set, then drove home through the city I'd learned to love. My city, my life, my choices. At home, I made dinner in my kitchen, ate on my couch, and curled up with a book in my reading nook. Simple pleasures that were entirely mine. No one controlling my time, my money, my decisions. No one making me small. No one dimming my light. Later, as I got ready for bed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked different than I had 3 years ago. Stronger, more confident, more alive. But more than that, I recognized the woman looking back at me. She wasn't a stranger anymore. She was me, fully and completely. My phone buzzed with a text from Zara. Tomorrow's appointment list is full. 3 women coming in for initial consultations. 2 need immediate housing. Can you handle intake? Absolutely, I replied. I'll be there early. This was my life now. Helping women escape the kind of trap I'd been caught in. Using Celeste's gift to set others free. Building something meaningful with every day I was given. As I lay in bed, I thought about Derek one last time, not with anger or sadness, but with detached clarity. He tried to control me, use me, destroy me. Instead, he'd inadvertently freed me. His betrayal had forced me to see the truth. His greed had shown his true character. His lies had given me permission to leave. In trying to steal my sister's legacy, he'd actually delivered it straight to me. I fell asleep smiling, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to help. That my sister's love continued to ripple outward, touching lives she'd never meet. That I was exactly where I was meant to be. Derek was gone, forgiven in the sense that I no longer carried anger toward him, but forgotten in the sense that he no longer mattered to my story. He'd been an obstacle, nothing more. The real story was about Celeste's wisdom, my transformation, and the hundreds, soon to be thousands, of women finding their own paths to freedom. That was the happy ending I'd needed. Not a new relationship, though Nathan was wonderful. Not revenge or punishment for those who'd wronged me. Not even the money, though it had made everything possible. The happy ending was becoming myself again. Rediscovering the woman I'd been before Derek, then becoming someone even better. It was building a life so beautiful that the past couldn't touch it. It was waking up every day and choosing joy, purpose, and freedom. It was knowing that Celeste's final gift hadn't just saved me, it had transformed me. And through me it would transform countless others. That was more than a happy ending. That was a legacy. That was love continuing beyond death, multiplying and spreading and lighting up the darkness. And it was only the beginning.